Who are you? So stupid. Take a breath and answer me. Just because you are shaking and have an attitude, it doesn't impress me. Don't be smart with me. Straighten up your attitude. People are watching you today. Do you still live with your mother?
What's up, guys? It's Benny. One of the single biggest stories that we are not talking about right now is the massive preponderance of evidence that has been breaking about how easy it is to actually rig our elections with electronic voting machines. And if you don't believe, just say our show or the InfoWars crowd or Tim Pool's program, or even like Kamala Harris, who back in the day before she was benefiting from election rigging was calling for paper ballots and an end to electronic voting. A ton of Democrats were doing that in 2018. I wonder what happened. Well, then why don't you believe the CIA head, or the equivalency of, from Venezuela, the same communist regime that actually developed the electronic voting machine systems, Smartmatic, Dominion, that are used throughout the world. He's here in an open letter to Donald Trump saying that these machines are used to rig elections, can rig elections, and do rig elections. Former Maduro spy chief, letter to Trump, seeks to expose narco-terrorist war against U.S. There's an explosive letter that is going around, looks like this right here, that has been sent to President Trump on behalf of the spy chief of Venezuela, the guy who worked directly for Hugo Chavez and the guy who set up their election rigging technology. His name is Carval Barros. He's the former director of military intelligence for Venezuela and once one of the most powerful figures in the entire government. In the letter shared exclusively with the Dallas Express by the attorney for Carvel, the senior Justice Department prosecutor, marks the first time the retired Major General has made these warnings after he pled guilty to U.S. federal narco-terrorism case earlier this year. He was extradited from Spain, a lengthy international manhunt, and now he's trying to atone by writing President Trump and saying, well, just spilling his guts here, effectively. A warning delivered from inside of Venezuela's inner circle. He is a man who spent years at the top tiers of Venezuela's security apparatus, dealt directly with senior leadership, Hugo Chavez and Nicolas Maduro. Earlier this year, he pleaded guilty in federal court to charges stemming from conspiracy that moved cocaine into the United States. So this is what the narco trafficking is they're trying to stop right now. So this is the letter. In case you think it's some crackpot crazy letter, it's been shared by Kari Lake, who serves in the Trump administration. It's been shared by General Flynn. And what does he say in the letter? Well, he talks about, obviously, narco-terrorism, Tren de Aragua. He talks about how they're trying to disrupt the United States of America with these criminal gangs, and counterintelligence and espionage against the United States, saying that there are effectively Venezuelan spies all throughout the federal government, and Cuban spies too. But it's right here, this Smartmatic and your elections section, that I think is so damning. Smartmatic was born as an electoral tool of the Venezuelan regime, soon derived as a tool to help keep the regime to stay in power. I know this because I placed the head of the IT for the National Electoral Council and in his position, and he reported directly to me. The Smartmatic system can be altered. This is a fact. The technology was later exported abroad, including the United States. Regime operatives maintain a relationship with election officials and voting machine companies inside of your country. I don't claim that every election is stolen. What I say with certainty is that elections are rigged by our software, and that it has been used to do so inside of the United States, he says. Wow. This is wild. Kari Lake saying a letter written to Trump for a man inside of the Maduro regime, a stark warning. Obviously, Kari Lake had an election stolen from her. And General Flynn saying that this is a severe warning that they are altering our elections. He describes how U.S. diplomats, CIA officers were paid to assist Chavez and Maduro to remain in power. He also describes how election software Smartmatic developed in Venezuela alter elections. It is a strategic warning. And so what's to happen next? We had a member of the Senate, Mark Wayne Mullen, on our program, and we asked him about this letter. He's done a ton of work on this. And What he had to say was a little alarming. Here we go. Want to, related or not, jump over to what is publicly available right now. Carrie Lake, member of the president's team, obviously posting about it. Also, the Dallas Express here with a headline: Former Maduro spy chief letter to President Trump seeks to expose narco-terrorist war against the United States using election rigging machines. He claims that Smartmatics was developed inside of Venezuela as an election manipulator tool to be deployed abroad so that intel agencies could manipulate elections. He asserts that Venezuelan and Cuban intelligence infiltrated U.S. institutions for decades, including military installations, and effectively that Venezuela has been the central hub of election rigging technology in our lifetimes. And then they published the full letter. And this letter has now been promoted by members of the administration, and so we do not doubt its validity. We encourage everybody to read it. It covers narco-terrorism, Tren de Aragua, and counterintelligence espionage against the United States, Smartmatic, and your elections. That's the section that I think I'd like to ask about.
Yeah, well, let's talk about this, what Stalin said, right? And I'm paraphrasing it, but Stalin said that he would tear down, he's talking about communism, and that's where Venezuela's moving towards. Unfortunately, it used to be a shining republic and a very prosperous country until communism is allowed to go in with Maduro leading the charge, right? And so what Stalin wanted to do is he wanted to sow doubt into the American election. If they don't believe in the election cycle, then they won't show up, and that tears down democracy. He also wanted us to destroy the family makeup. The family bond in the United States was like no other, and how he has to do that is through drugs. And so you see the perfect ability for them to sow doubt into our elections by going after our machines, and then by destroying our cities, our towns, our streets, and our families by killing the amount of people that the drugs are killing. I mean, I've used this term before. I'll use it again. Last year, not term, but fact. Last year alone in 2024, we lost over 66,500 individuals to drug overdoses. That's more than the Americans' lives we lost in the Vietnam War, which was just over 57,000 individuals. You think about that. I mean, and how quick that destroys our family makeup. And so Venezuela has been the hub of this, and there's no doubt that they're not working alone. There's a direct relationship between China and Russia that's also involved in this, and we know that they have been trying to get involved in our elections. The issue that we've had, though, the reason why they were able to get there is because for years Venezuela had a very close relationship with the United States in business partners and not just with technology, but also with the oil and gas industry. And it started with the oil and gas industry. And so we've allowed them into our economy. And before we realized what was happening in Venezuela, we also allow those investors to be a part of some of the stuff we thought was unpenetrable, which would have been some of our election cycles and our election machines and the way we look at it. And so there's a lot of concern there that the previous administration didn't want to look into, even though the information was staring right in front of them. They chose not to pay attention to it. And this administration is saying, hey, we want the elections to be fair for everybody, regardless if you're Republican or Democrat. If you're a Democrat, let your vote count. If you're a Republican, let your vote count. But let's make sure the American people can trust that our election system is the most secure and the fairest in the nation.